So welcome everybody. Lovely to be with you. We just completed a tea and overtones meditation. So I'm kind of high on the tea and the chocolate. Certainly gives me enough of a boost to do the meditation. Hopefully I'm not going to be speaking too fast. Tea seems to be a bit more relaxing. And here we are again, just to be together in this beautiful energy where we just really allow ourselves to enter a spacious place. And the spaciousness is so important for what we're doing in this meditation. Now, again, I want to distinguish this meditation from other practices. The main one in the movement of spiritual inner awareness is spiritual exercises. That we'll be doing on Thursday, this Thursday at noon. And that's more of a specific spiritual practice that involves chanting and listening and then traveling the inner realms of consciousness. Not that you can't travel the inner realms of consciousness right now. In fact, we are multi-dimensional beings. So some of you maybe have a physical body present, but you might not quite be here or in the body, as we would say. So constantly there's this constant shifting of levels within us. But I do want to distinguish it because we're not doing spiritual exercises as such, or even listening to the sound current. In this meditation, we are entering space, spaciousness. And that has an expansive quality about it. And the beauty of that is that when we can enter into a spaciousness, a place of space, then that space contains everything. So if we have a disturbance, we tend to lock into that disturbance, and that disturbance is our world. If we become space, that disturbance just is basically a pixel, to use the metaphor of the computer screen, where there's millions of pixels. That disturbance becomes just a pixel that doesn't affect us whatsoever. We can be aware of it, but it's not running our life. But when we're up close to it, then it can be very dominant, it can be upsetting, it can be annoying, it can be frustrating. It can even produce even more vigorous or intense emotional states. So it helps to get some distance. Another analogy would be if I was having an argument, let's say, with someone, and very serious, and it was very, very important to me, and I got very upset and very annoyed, and my life was falling apart, and I'm pulling my hair out, and oh my God, this is such a big drama. And then at the same time, there's an astronaut that's circling in space, and he's looking at the planet Earth as being this magnificent planet. He's seeing the beautiful hues of blues and greens and the colors and the clouds, and just like in awe of the Earth, and just like how everything is perfect and what a precious place it is. Meanwhile, I'm screaming and shouting back on Earth. I'm screaming and shouting and all upset and tense. Back in the astronaut is just like in bliss consciousness. And what's the difference? Well, the difference is that I've made that argument my life. It's dominant. And the astronaut, his life is looking at the Earth as a whole. And so I'd have to really zero in on my world from his world. Really have to zero in to pinpoint that moment. So it's another way of looking at things. So a way of saying that is just like altitude in our life is so important. When we can get some altitude, then we can find that things aren't perhaps as dramatic or as important as we're making them. Even the situations we're facing in the world right now, with climate change and everything that's going on, if we take a more of an altitude approach, we may find that things aren't as bad as we're making them, or at least in our attitude, or at least about us getting upset. because getting upset is really not a useful strategy. It really doesn't help anybody, doesn't help us. In fact, it can make us sick. It can make people around us sick because that will start affecting other people and can add negativity to the situation. Very difficult, isn't it? Really, because sometimes you go, well, this is really upsetting. I'm really upset about it. And it's just like, well, I understand, but is staying upset a useful way of dealing with things? And so we're here in this meditation to get out of upset, to get out of annoyance, to get out of our mental loops, and to come into something so magnificent that we wonder by the time this meditation is over why we're not living in that place, because that place is always with us. We're not going somewhere. We're actually just dialing in, much like a radio station, where the music is present in the room. Classical, hard rock, talk radio, country and western, on and on. And we have a radio signal that we can tune into that can get us on the channel that we want to be on. Another analogy is a remote control, right? It's just like where you've got, especially in the old days where you'd have 500 channels, let's say, and it's just like, okay, what vibration do you want to tune into? Just press that button. So you can dial it in, press the button, and find yourself in a different vibration. And so that's what we're going to dial in. We're going to dial in that awareness of that part of ourselves that is the spiritual sky. And more than that is this unconditionally loving presence that holds us. So we ask for the highest and purest light from the highest and purest source to surround and fill each one of us and the space that we are in for the highest good. Now, I always like to ask for the presence of my spiritual teacher, John Roger, who is the founder of the movement of spiritual inner awareness, and his work informs all that I do. And but if John Roger doesn't do it for you, then call in a spiritual presence, a spiritual form that does work for you. I like to ask for, right now I ask for the energy and the presence of John Roger to infuse all that we're doing here for our highest good. So that makes a difference to me because we suddenly find ourselves already attuning differently. And if who you've asked for is Jesus Christ or the Buddha or Muhammad, whatever form or teacher that you'd like, if you're into the Indian deities of Ganesha or Shiva or Krishna, I mean, all of that is fine. But in my work, I'm interested in the light, the love of the presence of Jesus Christ, and to be in that protection, the energy and the presence of John Roger, and something we call the mystical traveler consciousness, which is within each one of us that guides us on our journey within us to who we are and even beyond that. And we can use that as a way to transmute or take any energy that's disturbing us right now, taking it back into the nothingness from which it came. Any negativity that may be on you, there may be some things you're worried or upset about. We just ask that the mystical traveler consciousness come forward from within each of our hearts and transmute, dissolve, release, and disperse that back into the nothingness from which it came for our highest good. So now the energy is really built here. And I always like to play each week these two very brief excerpts from John Roger, but very, very potent and filled with meaning. So two, well, I guess they're 1 minute each excerpts from John Roger. We'll listen to them now.
The divine presence is exactly that thing that is present everywhere. And I could take you to a radical point of view and tell you that there really is no soul. There really is only this presence that is omnipotent, omnipresent at all times. But we talk about the soul as that individualized energy to give you a sense of well-being so that you can wave your dilemma away as you rise up in consciousness to find out you are what you have always been, and you are the one you've been looking for. If you're not pleasing yourself by being who you are, I got some sad news for you. That's tough, because that's all there is. If you haven't found that place yet inside of you that is full and brilliant, that's tough, because that's all there is. But when you get there, that's enough, because that's all there is. That's all there is for everybody on all the levels of consciousness. The bright, brilliant radiance of our beingness.
So let's just move into this meditation now. You can close your eyes and just be aware of what's happening in your consciousness at this time. Just find any places of tension in your body. Usually I find mine in my shoulders pretty much every time. Top of my shoulders, just tight. I tend to do a lot of thinking, so I find the people who tend to do a lot of thinking are in the upper parts of their bodies. So I like to soak my mind into my shoulders, soak my awareness, bringing it slowly down from my head into the shoulders. So wherever your tension is, you can do the same thing. Soak it into the shoulders. Bring it down. And let that awareness come down from your head slowly into your neck and shoulders, into your chest, into your arms, into your stomach, to your hips and pelvis, thighs, and calves, and into your feet. Now that's very fast, but I just want you to get the idea. You don't even just be still at the neck if you're really doing this slowly. Just that idea that this awareness can soak down into your body. And the purpose of this is not the meditation, it's just a preliminary practice to have you relax and release. And any tension that we have is us just holding on. Which is completely fine. Nothing, there is no wrong state. I'd like you now just to expand from the state, our focus on the body, to a state of awareness where you are aware of the body, that the body is still there, but that you're expanded beyond it. And that you can look at yourself with complete love. Now, the personality will find difficulty doing this, but you're more than the personality. We are more than the body, more than the mind, more than our emotions, more than our unconscious. So in the way we describe the astronaut looking upon the earth, you can now be that astronaut looking upon your body and your mind and your emotions and your unconscious, and just see them for what they are. But the part that looks or observes or senses has a quality of unconditional love. In unconditional love, there is absolutely no judgment and no evaluation of good or bad. And as soon as we label something good or bad, we've immediately put a condition on it. And continue to let go as well. The body can still be relaxing while you're doing this. In fact, that as you feel loved, as your body receives the love being given to it right now from this unconditional, loving presence, it'll begin to relax. The great poet and mystic and teacher Kabir, I think he was around a few hundred years ago in India, said, "All know that the drop merges into the ocean, but few know that the ocean merges into the drop." Kabir also said, "If a mirror ever makes you sad, you should know that it does not know you." And here's a quote from John Roger, who says, "You are loved just as you are right now." Get that really clear in your heart. There is nothing you have to do differently to be loved by God. Who you are is enough in itself. This is the positive inner reality, and it's the truth about you. If the way you are and the way you behave aren't joy producing for you, then you have the right and the ability to change. Regardless, God's love is consistently available to you. So this is quite an interesting quote, really. I'm going to say it again, because if you can really take this with you, let it really absorb itself into your consciousness. I think you'll agree you will have gone through a deep transformation. And even for those of you who have really deeply practiced in loving, you will have noticed that there is always another deeper level to go. Something else that needs to be loved and accepted. JR, which we call John Roger JR, JR is very unequivocal. There's no double meaning or hidden meaning or secret meaning here. There's no paradox or nuance. He says you are loved just as you are right now. And then to emphasize, get that really clear in your heart. And then to emphasize it even more, there is nothing you have to do differently to be loved by God. There is nothing you have to do differently to be loved by God. Who you are is enough in itself. This is the positive inner reality, and it's the truth about you. If the way you are and the way you behave aren't joy producing for you, then you have the right and the ability to change. Regardless, God's love is consistently available to you. This is so interesting to me. I mean, it's almost this. This is an exercise, a meditation in itself. Almost like a step-by-step process. You are loved just as you are right now. So that's the first thing. You don't have to seek for love. Get that really clear in your heart, not in your mind. Get that really clear in your heart. There is nothing you have to do differently to be loved by God. Who you are is enough in itself. Just sit with that for a moment. And we'll hear some music. There's nothing you can do differently to be loved by God. Whatever word you want to put on God. If God disturbs you, then there is nothing you need to do differently to be loved by the divine, by what is greater than ourselves. Let that soak in. John Roger tells us, here is the paradox. Spirit has always been there. And for the most part, we have always been there. If we have been there and it has been there, why are we not knowing that we are both there. What is this thing inside of us that stops us from knowing what is going on? And here's another quote from John Roger, just to augment what we've been saying. He said, "You do not have to seek love. You are already love." Perhaps that could just be an hour meditation in itself, right? In those two lines. You do not have to seek love. You are already love. In soul, you do not seek outside yourself, because who you are encompasses all there is. True spirituality transcends all separation. There is no lover because there is no other to be loved. There is only one. That oneness is the beloved. And in answer to that question, why don't we know we're both already here? Spirit's here, we're here. Why don't we both know that? John Roger kind of gives us a clue. He says, you can't help but be who you are. That's what breathes you. Your problems come when you pretend to be someone else. You do not have to seek love. You are already love. So let's see if we can translate this into something really practical for you to take away. And Ram Dass has a beautiful way of saying all of this, putting it into something for us to do, because I think a lot of us sometimes like a technique or a tool, something that reminds us, or something that can be a doorway through we can enter this awareness that we are already love. And Ram Dass, who just passed away I think about a year or two ago, he said, I have a practice in which I say to myself, I am loving awareness. To begin, I focus my attention in the middle of my chest, on the heart. I may take a few deep breaths to help me identify with it. I breathe in love and breathe out love. I watch all of the thoughts that create the stuff of my mind, and I love everything. Love everything I can be aware of. I just love, just love, just love. I love you. No matter how rotten you are, I love you because you are part of the manifestation of God. In that heart space, I'm not Richard Alpert. I'm not Ram Dass. Those are both roles. In the heart space, I'm not identified with my roles. They're like costumes or uniforms hanging in a closet. When we say, I am a father, I am a yogi, I am a man, I am a woman, I am a driver, those are all roles. All I am is loving awareness. I am loving awareness. It means that wherever I look, Anything that touches my awareness will be loved by me. When I wake up in the morning, I'm aware of the air, the fan on my ceiling. I've got to love them. I am loving awareness. But if I'm an ego, I'm judging everything as it relates to my own survival. The air might give me a cold that will turn into pneumonia. I'm always afraid of something in the world that I have to defend myself against. If I am identified with my ego, the ego is frightened silly because the ego knows that it is going to end at death. But if I merge with love, there's nothing to be afraid of. Love neutralizes fear. Awareness and love, loving awareness is the soul. The practice of I am loving awareness turns you inward toward the soul. If you dive deep enough into your soul, you will come to God. In Greek, it's called agape, God love. Martin Luther King Jr. said about this agape, this higher love, it's an overflowing love which is purely spontaneous, unmotivated, groundless, and creative. The love of God operating in the human heart. When you can accept that kind of love, you can give that love. You can give love to all you perceive all the time. I am loving awareness. You can be aware of your mind producing thoughts. Thoughts are terribly seductive, but you don't have to identify with them. You identify not with the thoughts, but with the awareness of the thoughts. To bring loving awareness to everything you turn your awareness to is to be love. This moment is love. I am loving awareness. You can slowly begin to come back into your bodies, gently wiggling your fingers and toes, perhaps allowing a slightly deeper breath just to permeate your body, bringing it more aliveness, perhaps stretching a little bit more your fingers and toes, and slightly deeper breath as you animate your body and come back into this world by slowly opening your eyes. Thanks for joining us. Please come again on Thursdays or next week. A huge thanks to our host, Stella, and to our technical crew here, Paul and Chris, and to Maria Jose Marignon for translating. And God bless you all. We'll see you all next week, and thrilled to be with you all. I've got a big smile on my face. Hopefully, I'll continue that throughout the whole week. Okay. God bless you.